If you're trying to make high quality video content to grow on either YouTube or social media, filming in a room that looks like this just isn't gonna cut it. In this video, I wanna show you how you can transform your videos from looking and sounding like this to this. And I'm gonna show you the 3 key elements that you need to transform any room into a professional content studio. Not understanding these 3 elements is like showing up to a first date dressed like a bum and smelling like a moose's ass. Your date's just gonna run as far away from you as they can and never look back. And the same thing goes for your content. Without a quality studio setup, you're ruining your video quality and you're destroying your chances at growing an audience because nobody wants to watch a low quality video with horrible audio that sounds like you're talking through a tin can. I've been making video content professionally for myself and for other creators now for over 8 years. And I've set up and filmed videos in dozens of different rooms in all shapes and sizes. You may think that you need expensive camera gear or a massive studio in order to film quality video to grow your audience. But the truth is, all you need are these 3 key elements and a couple of simple techniques in order to transform your low quality videos into something that sets you apart from 90% of other creators out there on any budget. The first key element you need is obviously a camera. Now this is where I see the majority of people get hung up because they think they need to spend thousands of dollars on some fancy camera to get started making content. But the truth is, you can get a pro quality with the phone that you have right now in your pocket. You just need to understand a few simple techniques in order to get the highest quality possible from whatever camera you choose to use. So to start out, let's go over some different camera options. If all you have is the camera on your phone, well, you'll find that you can actually get some pretty high quality content as long as you have the right settings and you're using that camera the right way. You can see here I'm filming on both my $3,000 Sony camera and my iPhone, and they both look pretty much the same quality. As long as you have the camera settings set correctly, you'll find that no matter which camera you're filming on, you can get a really high quality look. And that's because of these other 2 elements that I'm going to be getting into in this video. The only camera I would say to just avoid using at all would be any sort of like action camera with a fixed wide lens, something like, a cheap GoPro, or something that's just meant for action camera use, or something like a low quality camcorder that can't quite capture the quality we're looking for, like 4K or even 1080p. The reason it's smart to invest in a different camera besides your phone camera is so that you have a dedicated camera for filming. You're not filling up a bunch of memory on your phone that's going to take up storage and completely just clog your photo album with tons of video footage. And professional cameras give you far more range to expand and add new accessories on to improve the quality even further. My favorite options are going to be something like a DSLR camera or a mirrorless camera. The camera I'm using right now is a Sony a7 III, and it's not even the newest camera on the market, but it does what I need it to do, and it gets me a high, crisp quality that I'm looking for. The key thing you need to understand about whatever camera you're using is just setting up the right camera settings in order to get the professional quality you're looking for. So the first thing you want to make sure you're doing is filming at 4K if possible. 4K has become the high definition standard at this point, but if you can't quite get 4K, at least make sure you can film 1080p. When it comes to frame rates on your camera, you're usually shooting between 24 and 60 frames per second. I personally film all of my content at 30 frames per second, which is perfect for YouTube or online social media content. Another setting that most amateurs don't even look at is setting the white balance and the exposure manually. If you have auto white balance or auto exposure turned on, then you run the risk of your camera changing the settings throughout the filming process, which can change the colors of your video or change the exposure throughout filming, and this just looks really horrible. Make sure to set your white balance to something that's not too bluish looking or not too orange looking, something that's right here in the middle at that nice sweet spot. This is going to be determined based on the lighting that you have in the room and a couple of other factors which we'll get into a little bit later in this video. Make sure that your focus is set on the subject, aka yourself, so that you're always crystal clear and in frame and never looking blurry or out of focus. And the last thing is just selecting between a wide or a super tight angle lens. If you film too wide, things can look a little unprofessional, but if you film too tight, you might be cutting off your head or other features in the rest of your studio that you may want to show off. I personally am filming on a 24mm lens, and you'll find that your camera phone can film at that exact same focal length. Whatever you feel like looks best in whatever room you're filming in, just go with that and run with it. And speaking of what room you're filming in, that's another thing I want to talk about, is camera angle and placement. Even if you're filming in a really small room, we want to make the best out of whatever room you're filming in. So that means finding an angle that gives you the most amount of depth from your room and makes it look as big as possible. Filming right up against a flat wall is a surefire way to make things look really boring. And so you want to make sure you pull the camera away from the wall to give yourself as much depth in the room room as possible. Then angling the camera off to the side, maybe in the corner of the room, or just focused on some part of the room that seems most interesting and pleasing to the eye is going to be your best bet for setting up your camera in whatever room you're filming in. Just make sure wherever you set up your camera that you're sitting somewhere comfortable, and preferably somewhere that you can leave the camera set up so that you never have to tear this thing down, and you can just leave it up at all times, so whenever you're ready to film a video, you can just turn on the camera and get to filming. This also helps with keeping your consistent look and never having the camera move around every single video, unless of course that's what you're going for. As far as how high you want the camera and how close you want it to you usually want to frame yourself right in the rule of thirds, and you'll see this used in even the most popular of movies, which basically just means if you divided your screen into 3 even parts, left to right and top to bottom, generally you want to be dead center or on one of these lines on either the left or the right side. You can just pull up Google and pull up rule of thirds and slap that onto your editor, or some cameras even have an overlay with this rule of thirds placed inside of the camera so that you can frame your shots accordingly. You can see with this shot here, I have a little bit of room where I can still see my hands in the shot, and you can see a good amount of the room here, and there's a little bit of space above my head, but for the most part, I am the center of attention, and right here, looking directly in the eye line of the camera. If your camera's too low or too high, this will give your video an awkward feel, so you want to make sure that it's basically right centered with your eye line, and then just position yourself within that rule of thirds, and you should be golden. Now, regardless of what camera option you choose, this next step is something you absolutely can't ignore, and that's professional quality audio. I'd argue that having bad quality audio is even worse and will get people to click off your video faster than having bad quality video from some cheap camera. The reason most beginners overlook this is because they just don't understand how important it is to have some form of a microphone that's properly capturing your voice, to give your viewers something that's soothing to the ear. And if you choose not to be on camera at all, well then audio becomes the most important element to your videos. So if you're filming videos with just the built-in microphone from your camera, well then here's how you can go about fixing that. There are a bunch of cheap options out there. Things like lavalier mics or just simple USB mics. A lavalier mic is those little mics that you see that people will clip onto their shirt, or you'll see some influencers just holding up right by their mouth. These little small tiny microphones right here. These can either be wired mics that plug right into your camera, or some of them are even wireless, which gives you more range to move around or film in multiple locations and keep that high quality audio no matter where you are. I've used USB microphones in the past, and those just plug directly into your computer and make it super easy to capture a high quality audio without needing to spend a ton of money on a mic. But if you're looking for something that's a little bit more professional, you'll want to upgrade your microphone to a pro audio quality mic. When it comes to pro microphones, there's basically only 2 options you have to choose from: a dynamic microphone and a condenser microphone. Now, I went to school for audio engineering, so audio is something that I'm a particularly big nerd about, but let me just simplify things for you. A condenser microphone is a microphone that looks like this. And that kind of microphone is going to be great for capturing crisp, high quality audio, but it also captures the sound of the room a lot more than a dynamic microphone would. And a dynamic microphone tends to look like this. So unless you're filming in an acoustically treated room, or a room that just sounds really good with no echoes or reverberant sounds, then it's usually best to go with a dynamic microphone. This is why all the podcasts and radio shows that you see all use the same type of microphones for the most part, which is like this SM7B you see right here. This gives a nice, crisp, and rich sound for your voice, but it doesn't pick up a lot of background noise or just room tone from the room that you're filming in. So this is one of the best options for filming high quality audio when it comes to making video content. Now, in order to use one of these professional microphones, you can't just plug it directly into your computer. You're gonna need a couple of other things. The first thing you'll need is an audio interface. And an audio interface just lets you plug in a professional quality microphone into your computer. It's basically the middleman between your computer and the microphone. Then you're gonna need some form of professional XLR cables, or basically just the cables that actually plug into the microphone here. That cable will plug from your microphone into the audio interface, and then the audio interface will plug into your computer with just a USB cable. And the last thing you might need is gonna be a mic stand, something like this, where you can move it around and adjust things, or you can just get a fixed mic stand that just sits right on your desk. No matter what option you choose, one of the most important things is just making sure that you set the right levels. So adjusting the levels of your audio interface or the levels of whatever microphone you chose. As far as where you want these levels to hit, it's usually right around 50 to 70% when you're speaking at the loudest volume. You just want to make sure that you're picking up your voice at a nice, healthy level, but you're not recording too loudly, or you might clip the audio and distort things, which makes things sound really bad. And if you distort your audio, it's almost impossible to fix that later when you're editing the video. So just make sure you keep your levels down at a nice healthy level, right around this 50 to 70% range. Now the microphone that I recommend is going to be the SM7B, but this is a little bit spendy. This is a $400 microphone right here with the cables and the audio interface and everything. You're looking at right around $500 to maybe even $600 of an investment for just the microphone alone. So you can see why many people maybe are scared or choose to not go with a professional microphone, but you still shouldn't go without any microphone whatsoever. Now, what if getting a microphone just is completely out of the question for you? Well, you can also use tools like Adobe's Audio Podcast here, where you can upload the audio from just your raw camera footage, and this will actually enhance the sound of your audio using AI, and the results are pretty dang good. For instance, here's what my voice sounds like with just the camera audio right now.
And here's what it sounds like when I'm using the AI tools from Adobe Podcast. You can tell it sounds pretty much like the exact same quality as my microphone.
Maybe not quite as good, but definitely gets you way better results than if you don't have any microphone whatsoever and you're not using a tool like this. This is a totally free tool to use, and all you gotta do is just Google search Adobe Podcast and it'll pull right up and you can instantly just click and drag and upload your audio in, and this will clean things up with just a click of a button. Super simple option. But again, I do recommend getting some sort of a dedicated microphone because that's gonna give you the best quality possible. So once you got your camera looking good and your audio sounding great, well, this last step is one of the number one things that differentiates professional looking video from totally amateur looking video. And that is lighting. Lighting is by far the number one element to giving you the highest quality video content, no matter what camera you're filming on. Understanding proper lighting will take your videos from looking completely amateur and like garbage to looking professional with just the flip of a switch. As you can tell from the clips in the beginning of this video, you never want to use just natural room lighting. First off, you have no control over the natural lighting in the room, and oftentimes the overhead lights that come just directly from the ceiling are going to create really nasty looking shadows on your face and overall just give you a really ugly looking color for your skin tones that just make things look unprofessional. Even if you're filming with an expensive camera and you have really horrible lighting, your video quality is still going to be horrible compared to what it would be if you just introduced some high quality lighting. And this doesn't mean expensive lights either. The best free option that you have is just using natural sunlight. By positioning yourself near a window where some natural sunlight is coming in, you'll find that you get some really nice lighting on your face. You just want to make sure that you can control that as much as possible and don't have the light be coming in too intense where it's just completely making you look blown out or just too bright. So if you're using natural sunlight, just try to set up your camera near a window and look for that best angle that's going to give you a high quality look with a good amount of light on you, the subject, and then stick to the rules that I explained when it comes to picking the best angles and or placement of the camera in the room to give your room the most amount of depth while using this natural sunlight. But if you're looking for the most professional look, it's best to use some form of a studio light to fully control the quality of your lights. With studio lights, you can often control the temperature of the lights, the brightness of them, and what direction they're coming from, no matter where you choose to set up in your room. This is also going to give you a way more consistent look. For instance, if you're using the sunlight and all of a sudden it gets super overcast or cloudy, well, that's going to make the lighting in your room and on you, the subject, completely change throughout the video. What happens if it's nighttime and you don't have any sunlight? How are you going to light your video then? Having studio lights is the best way to control not only the quality of your light, but the consistency of that light as well. The last thing that studio lights does for you is it gives you the option to control the vibe or the overall aesthetic of the room. Whether you're going for a dark and moody look or more of a bright and vibrant look, lighting is how you achieve the difference in these aesthetics and how you overall just get the look that you're going for. Now, you don't need to spend a ton of money on lighting if you don't really have a big budget right now. You can go on Amazon and find some pretty good quality video lights that range anywhere between $50 to maybe $100, and some of them even come with multiple lights so that you have a couple of different lights to light up the room in a number of different ways. There are also pro quality lights that give you way more control over the brightness, the color temperature, and just give you a higher quality looking light. The light that I'm using is just a simple $100 light right here, the Godox SL60W. And I also have this big softbox attachment. That's one of the number one things you want to look for when buying a studio light is just some option that gives you this softbox. All a softbox does is give you a nice, soft, smooth looking light without giving you a bunch of harsh, ugly looking shadows. You can remove this softbox if you want to get that nice, bright, and intense light, but by putting it on there, you get that nice soft look that you see right here as my main source of light on me, the subject. Now, some softboxes have this grid on them, and that grid just helps with pointing the light in a very specific direction so that it doesn't flood the whole room, but instead just points that light more directly at whatever you're pointing the light at. This helps to keep things a bit more moody and vibey if I don't want to completely flood the room with light, and I want to just keep it fixated on the subject. So now let me break down the 3 steps for lighting any room to get you the best quality professional look. To start out, go ahead and just turn off all the lights in the room, any natural lights that you may have, and close all the windows so that you have basically just a pitch black room. The first thing I like to set up are any background lights. So what do I want the room to look like? Maybe I want to have some practical lights in the background, meaning like some lamps, or some LEDs. Then you see I got this light back here behind this tree, which just gives that tree a little bit more dimension. I also have this neon sign over here that gives some cool atmosphere. I also turn on this TV back here that gives me that nice fireplace look, which just adds to the vibe, but it's also giving me a ton of extra light in the room. In my case, I have these LED strip lights all around that give this nice blue color and just overall gives this whole room a kind of cool vibe and just makes it glow a certain way. I find it's easiest to set these background lights first because if you start putting in all your other lights, well, it can really easily just overflood the room with light. And to begin with, I just want to set a cool tone and figure out what aesthetic I'm going for with my lighting. Whether I want a super dark background or a super lit up bright background, that is all determined from your background lights. The second light you want to bring in is going to be your main key light. A key light is just your main source of light, which is whatever studio light you chose to purchase if you go that route. Your key light can also be the natural sunlight if you're going to use just window lighting. So once you've got your camera positioned in the room wherever you'd like it, and you've got all the background lights on, you can position your key light wherever you want it to get the best possible quality of light. If you just position your light straight on, right in front of your face, this often gives a really flat and just kind of unappealing look. It's best to angle your key light off to the side, about 45-degree angles, either to the left or to the right of you. You can see I have my key light over coming from this side right here, which gives this side of my face a bit more shadows than the side that the key light is coming from. This gives a more cinematic look and just gives a lot more depth to the shot. The height of your light also matters. If you have your light just shining directly at your face, that's going to look a lot different than if you position the light a little bit higher and angle it down, pointing down at your face, again, about at a 45-degree angle. This is kind of the general rule of thumb, having your light off to 45 degrees to either one side or the other, and then having it raised up a little bit and angled down at about 45-degree angle, shining down at your face or the main subject, which is you. Then you just want to bring the light close enough to where you get a nice soft look, but you're not completely blowing out your face with too much light. If your light has an adjustable temperature, you can go ahead and adjust it from either being more warm or more cool. Generally, I set my light right around 5400 Kelvin, which is usually about the same temperature that the natural sunlight creates. And if you have the ability to control the brightness, you can adjust that as well. And for me, with this big light that I have, I generally only need the light at about 20% brightness in order to give me the look that I'm getting right now. Once you have your main key light in place, this is where you can start to adjust the exposure and the white balance settings on your camera again, just to make sure that your white balance doesn't look too blue or too orange again, and make sure that your exposure looks nice with the amount of light that you have coming in now from your studio light. And the third step, or the last thing that you can add, is a rim light, which is this light that's coming over here from this side. You can see if I turn this rim light off, what it's doing exactly. It's just adding a little bit of extra light kind of bouncing off my head. What I did is I angled it basically just exactly opposite from my key light. So my key light is angled 45-degree angles from the front of me. My rim light, or this backlight here, is angled just about 45-degree angles behind me and pointed at the back of my head, coming from this angle right here. This adds a little bit of light on the side of my face. It also just gives a little bit of definition on the side of the chair here and kind of just lights up, a little bit behind me, which gives me more definition from the background. Adding a rim light like this is totally optional, but I find that it gives such more dynamic and more depth to the shot and just makes things look way more cinematic and professional. I'll be sure to leave links for all the lights that I use down in the description, so in case you want to check out the exact lighting that I'm using in all of my videos, you can find them. Now those are the 3 key elements you need for any professional video: a high quality camera, high quality audio, and high quality lighting. But here's some extra bonus tips just to make things look even cooler, and that is adding vibe or aesthetic to your studio. This is like that showing up on a date looking like a bum analogy that I used at the beginning of the video, because having an aesthetically pleasing studio can really help to set the tone and to show off a ton of your personality all within a quick glance right when clicking on your video. Now, your lighting is what determines most of the aesthetics and the vibe that you're going for when it comes to what your studio looks like, but here are a few other things that you can do to really spice things up. Things like adding wall decorations or plants or, whatever kind of furniture you have in the room. All these things really add to the overall tone and really help to show off some of your personality as well. Now me, I'm a huge movie fan, so I have a bunch of movie posters in the background and just a bunch of little Easter eggs hidden all over the studio, and this really just helps people to know a little bit more about me and to show off some more of my personality. I also have my computer monitor back here because this is where I do all the editing of my videos, and you can see that just having a computer in the shot really just helps to add to the overall aesthetic of my tech kind of vibe, and overall just sets the tone for the kind of vibe that I'm going for. Whatever kind of decorations or flair that you can add to your studio just really helps it to go from a boring, basic basic room into a really cool, aesthetically pleasing looking studio setup. This just helps your studio be a more pleasing place for you to work, as well as for your viewers to be watching. Now, with all of these steps, you have yourself a high quality video studio that will give you a professional looking quality that won't scare your viewers away right when they click on your video. These 3 steps will ensure that you have the best possible looking and sounding video to grow your audience online. But what good is having a big audience if you don't even know how to monetize that audience? If you're looking for a way to level up your content game even further with a solid strategy for monetizing your audience, well then you should check out my free private community called Creator Cashflow. This community is full of other creators and online business owners just like you who are using content to grow their audience and to monetize that audience using passive income streams like selling digital products or affiliate marketing. Everyone inside of that community is looking to grow and scale their businesses to start to make some real money online and to hit their first $10,000 month using a course that I have included inside of the community completely for free. If that sounds like something you'd be interested in, I'll leave a link down in the description so you can check it out, along with those links to all the different gear that I explained throughout this video. Now go set up your studios to get some professional video quality, and I'll see you in the next video.